Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining our Salesforce Business Academy. Today we have a part 3 of our webinars, and today we will talk about brand loyalty in 21st century. So thank you very much for spending your time together with us, whether you are doing it as we do it live webinar or watching a recording of it later on. Normally, I would do my presentation together with my colleague Jurgis Bakanas. Unfortunately, today I have to do it alone. Therefore, I'm terribly sorry, but we won't be able to do a live demonstration. However, we will record the demonstration and share it with current viewers. And as well, we will attach it on our recording at the end of our recording for the later watching of the full recording. So hi again, I'm Andrius Guzaitis, as usual. I'm from a company called Agmis, and I'm accredited Salesforce sales professional. I'll do my best to cover today's topic for you. Just before we start, a few the way how we do this webinar, short instruction. So one way, a webinar, as I mentioned, is recorded. Please feel free to ask questions during webinar and go to webinar chat section. We have a picture here of the dedicated software. It will look slightly differently if you are using your browser to join webinar. But one way or the other, please do ask questions. If I can, I'll answer them at the end of the webinar. If I cannot, or there is not enough time, we will be quite happy to share our thoughts on the question by email. Also, during this webinar, we will be using Salesforce.com data and experience gathered consulting agmis customers and partners. Due to the first point, specifically Salesforce data, we have to read you a forward-looking statement. That is, if you are making any decision to buy Salesforce products, please base your decision on the functionality which is currently available, not on the one which is expected to be in the further updates. All right, so that takes care of all the administrative details, and let's jump onto the topic. So today we will talk about brand consistency in today's omnichannel reality. Also, recommendations to ensure client loyalty and how to increase average revenue per user. How technology, I think most important will be how technology helps to keep clients loyal and happy in today's world, which is rather different from quite not so long ago. And as well, how to create a future-proof client retention strategy, which is quite important. Now, before we move forward, let's take a quick look backwards. That is what we covered in the previous parts of our webinar series. If you have looked through them, thank you very much, but I think it will be useful just to do a 5 minutes refresh. If you have not, please make sure to watch them online, and also just a little stepping stone for you to catch up on this webinar. So essentially, we spoke about what's most important in enterprise level of business management software. And we came to the conclusion that values must be above features. As an example, features are stuff which can be listed. The software may have mobile app, for example. It may have certain integration capabilities. It may have certain user interface capabilities, and so on. However, while it's easy and simple to show comparison between different software products, it's not necessarily shows the value which it brings to your company. So always make your decisions regarding choice of the software or upgrading the software based on the value it brings to your company. As a first example, mobile application, it might be very, very valuable to your company if you do a lot of remote work, if you have remote specialists, or if you can use, if you can pass over to your customers to, say, for example, serve themselves over the mobile app. However, if all your business is done from the office and you don't have remote users of any sort, mobile app becomes, well, just a feature. So what gives Valuia, just to cover a little bit wider, we came to the conclusion that Valuia provides anything that provides extra efficiency for your company, whether it's be quality preservation, time management, reduction of expenses, or better asset utilization. If it brings more efficiency, it brings more value. How can it be achieved by software? Is by adding all these points listed here on your screen. That is, if you can measure the effort, then you can make your decisions, then you can make informed decisions, scientifically informed decisions, whether, say, change. If you can measure the effort before change and measure the effort after change and see the difference, then you can actually say that the change was to the bad or to the good, not just by subjective idea of whether it was good or not so good. Then integrations, if software is integrable with other software packages, that of course provides extra efficiency by just removing need to transfer information or assume some kind of information. If you have a good employee onboarding, whether it's new users like current employees becoming users of new software, or those are new employees coming to join your team, if you can do quick onboarding, that's time saving, that's better usage of your tools and your resources. Next one is rather overlooked quite often, is scalability. If software is good for 4 people, it's not necessarily good for 40, and it's definitely has a chance to be no good for 200. So if you have at least minimal expectations to grow, make sure that all your choices are looked forward. We have seen in our practice quite a few moments when the software, which was working perfectly fine for 40 people, big company, went completely bonkers when that company grew up to 60 people, which is percentage-wise, it's not that huge growth. Then, of course, there is a communication, and we mean communication in all levels. It's vertical communication from management down to employees and vice versa. It's horizontal communication between departments. It's communication between databases, and it's communication with the customer. If the software provides better communication, it provides value to your company. And the last but way not least is visibility. The good software package nowadays is unthinkable unless it provides better visibility of what's happening in your company and all levels which are covered by that software. All right, so that was a quick go through of what we looked into earlier. And today we will talk about keep part of find, win, keep process. Just to reiterate quickly, find is the part of the sales process where we find the customer, where we lure the customer towards us. Win is the part which is normally associated with sales. So that is the part where we win that customer for our company. And he actually becomes the customer of our company. And then is the third part, which is too often overlooked. It's the keep part. There are quite a few calculations how cheaper it is to upkeep your current customers, and who are quite likely to become your customers again, against of how much does it cost to win new customers. However, we see time and again, I think it was especially the thing in some 10 or 15 years ago when, for example, telecoms were so much fighting over new customers that it was quite normal to sign a contract for your, say, mobile phone for 2 years, and then change provider because your current provider will not give you a deal as good as the other provider just because you are not the new customer. Telecoms were so eager to grab new customers that they completely forgot that, well, even if you catch the customer for 2 years, after 2 years you have to keep him or you will lose that customer. So today we will look how to keep them. Before we proceed forward with the theory, I would like you to help me out with this question. Please kindly open browser in either your computer or your mobile phone and provide your thoughts on what's better, Sony or Xiaomi. I'm deliberately not asking specific question in what area it is better. I would like to see your reasoning behind it, if you may. Sorry. Mostly because it would be a very good conversation point. So, okay, thank you. We have already one answer. Can we have at least one or two more? In the meantime, let's remind ourselves what's Sony and what's Xiaomi. Those are two fairly big, I would say. That would be quite an understatement, probably. Electronic providers of electronic goods. Sony obviously is very old brand, well, in our days world anyway. Well established with a huge portfolio. Here I can see he has wider product range. That's absolutely correct. However, the place where they are mostly competing with the fairly newcomer Xiaomi, I hope I'm not mispronouncing that name, I hear it pronounced differently, is of course mobile phones, where Sony was also earlier player than Xiaomi. However, Sony is losing to Xiaomi. It may be argued Sony is losing because Xiaomi is cheaper brand, may be argued that Xiaomi naturally has much better coverage in 1/7 of our world's population that is in China. There are different arguments. I myself am a customer of both Sony and Xiaomi. And I find that I most likely won't stay a customer of either of them, mostly because I do not like their customer service. When I have a problem with Sony mobile phone, there is nobody to talk to. However, well, I can probably go to the supplier of the phone, then I will be directed to the probably technical services, and so on. It's a long story. With Xiaomi is somewhat quicker. You can reach them online. However, when I reached a really frustrating problem, all they did, they just referred to the web page where it was kind of explanation how to deal with that problem. So in the future, am I going to stay customer of theirs? Maybe, but I'm certainly starting to look for the alternatives. That's the problem with today's world. Well, I see we do not have any further answers, so let's switch back to the presentation. Just 1 second, please. There we go. So today's world is definitely different from yesterday's, be it 10 years ago or 50 years ago. My generation, at least, and I'm not that very old, grew up in times when it was usual to kind of make your big decision. What car manufacturer you like, what mobile phone manufacturer you like, what electronics manufacturer you like, so what audio equipment you are going to buy, and then stick with that decision. Nowadays, we're looking for different things. So challenges of keeping customers, it's not enough just to have a strong brand image. You absolutely must have accessibility, and accessibility is for all the customers. But most important, imagine the situation. Imagine that you have a so-called monster customer, one of the new phenomenon of influencers. The person who is essentially has a reach bigger than most of local newspapers, in some cases even the national newspapers. and doesn't have any restrictions of expressing his or her annoyance, especially. So imagine you have a customer like that, and you failed to look up after his or her needs as there was expectation. You are going to have a PR nightmare on your hands. Therefore, nowadays, you pretty much must have accessibility 24 hours and 7 days a week. Next thing is expertise. By questionnaire done by a UK company, sorry, can't quote exactly which company was that, 85% of respondents complained that they were left to wait online until the specialist who took their call had a chat either with another specialist or with the shift leader or anybody else. So in other words, was looking for the information, was not a specialist of the question they called to talk about. That is required nowadays. Well, as the thing that I don't know how to spell expertise, sorry about that. Crisis management. And crisis, well, yet again, this year we had an absolute stellar example of what crisis can bring in. Usually your business knows quite well when there are ups and downs of the season. So your contact center, for example, knows that they have to allocate more resources, say in Christmas time, or much less resources in summertime. Depending on what you do and what you work with, you have your ups and downs during the year. The thing is that nowadays you must be prepared to have up at any time. Like, well, good example would be parcel delivery service companies during Corona crisis. As we all know, we were not able to shop, or at least very much discouraged to do shopping. There was a huge increase in the requirement of parcel delivery. Only few companies were able to pick up the slack, and not in the sense that they were not able to do deliveries. Quite a lot of people were available as a ready available workforce, even with their own vans and so on, and it was quite easy to scale up on the material resources. However, customer support in quite a few companies was really, really suffering. So whatever you choose as your enterprise software, you must be able to use that software to do sudden upscales. And, oh, excuse me, wrong button. And another thing is that what used to be a customer, excuse me, customer support centers usually were and still are mostly looking at the keep part of find, win, keep. However, in the background of huge amount of information, and what's the problem is that that information is quite easily accessible. Quite a lot of people do not want to start looking for the information because distracting leads are popping here, there, left, right, and center. You start looking for something red and you finish looking at something fishy, you know. It's quite frustrating to find something, especially if you are not huge surfer or Google specialist by yourself. So what you do, you essentially try to get that information directly from the supplier. At least you make your choice that, okay, I want to buy pretty much this. You look up, these guys are more or less what I want. And then you call or email or write to them or whichever way you reach out, but you're looking for the pre-purchase information. Therefore, customer contact centers become more and more relationship hubs, meaning that they contribute quite a lot to the find and even win parts, much more anyway than it used to be beforehand. Right, but with challenges, we get new possibilities. So technology changed our landscape, technology is changing our possibilities as well. So first of all, let's take a look at Omnichannel. Omnichannel starts at multi-channel, and what's the difference? Multi-channel is something we are quite aware of. Customers can reach, and we as a customer quite are happy to reach out by phone, as it was probably the oldest way. Let's drop the physical letters out of the equation. By email. To that, we were more or less prepared 20 years ago already. Now there comes fast and furious web chats, social media, other texting platforms, and so on and so forth. Well, if only short messaging system of the mobile phone, if that, for that matter. However, if your contact center or your salesmen, for that matter, are using different channels, it doesn't mean that they are using them well. So that is what covers what Omnichannel covers. All the channels must be interchangeable, and you must be able to follow your customer requests through multiple channels. Meaning that, for example, I've called with a problem. Later on, as a customer, I send extra information requested during the conversation by email. And then I would like to log in on your website where I am a customer and check it out in the late evening. What's the situation of a question I asked in the morning? All of that must be consolidated in one place. It's ideal if one specialist can follow me through together. Excuse me. Follow together with me through those channels. But one way or the other, anybody should be able to see how, where, and when I communicated and how it interconnects. So that is Omnichannel. Another thing together with Omnichannel is intelligent routing, meaning that, excuse me, autumn cold, meaning that, as I mentioned, this frustration of the huge amount of information, if you have more complex product or service than just very, very simple, most likely you will have a few different branches of product, few different products, few different problems expected with that product maybe. So any connection with the customer must be routed directly to the place where customer must go. It might be a smart answers, question and answer system, and there are quite a few different ways. We will cover them slightly later on. To do that, you absolutely need, both for omnichannel and intelligent routing, you need 360 view, or a single view, as it is called sometimes, of the customer. In other words, you absolutely must know who your customer is, what he bought already, if he did, what and where interests lie, depending on your product, maybe a few things about family numbers, or, well, at least area where he or she lives and language he or she prefers. All of that can be used directly to advance your customer through the system much quicker, much more to the point, and keeping him or her happier. To that contributes quite a lot as well knowledge base and AI-based tools. Knowledge base is pretty much becoming the term for it. It comprises the kind of encyclopedia of knowledge collected by your employees, customer-facing employees. In some cases, it's technically possible to do a knowledge base based on the best practices of the industry. However, each and every company, and especially product and service, has its own twists and turns. So in our practice, we find that the best way is to collect that information from your best customer-facing employees, be it agents or salesmen, and prepare kind of encyclopedia, which can be used by the same high-level specialists, and of course new members of the team, even not necessarily absolutely brand new. Anybody who's facing customers should be able to reach out into the wealth of knowledge collected by the whole team. So when your customer is identified, and most important in this case, when you have identified customer's problem, you should be able to see immediately what are the best solutions, even simple thing like, for example, communicating with the customer over email, you should be able quickly find pre-prepared paragraphs of answers, pre-prepared templates, and so on. That saves time. That makes customers happier because they get answers quicker, and that utilizes your resources better. To that extent, AI is absolutely vital because given enough information and enough time, a good artificial intelligence engine will find statistical cues and will help suggest best solutions even when there is a different, when the same question is asked in different way. Talking about AIs, next thing when you have a good knowledge base and good AI, oh, excuse me, I keep pressing wrong buttons, sorry about that. The next best thing is chatbot. Chatbot in its own infancy was created probably 10 years ago, so it's not exactly brand new stuff on the market. However, with the advance of AIs and, as I mentioned, of the understanding of the knowledge base and how it should be prepared and sorted, chatbots are actually becoming really, really useful, practically team members, not even a tool, but kind of virtual team member. Chatbot can help you to intelligently route customer. Chatbot can help you to cover your weak spot in case if you have a huge spike in requests and so on. And chatbot essentially nowadays can even, in many cases, help customer to find out answer completely without engaging human specialists, therefore allowing human specialists to provide more time to the more complex cases. And after that, what we get when we have knowledge base, AI, 360 view of the customer, chatbots, then we get intelligent self-catering. Self-catering, yet again, is not something new. We had a self-catering electronic banking system, for example, probably first part of the world where it became really feasible, and that happened, in my memory, some 18 years ago. However, intelligent self-catering is combining that self-catering possibility and knowledge base and AI and chatbot and so on. All the information you collect about the customer and retrieving more information by AI tools from all the interactions with other customers. We can offer nowadays quite good experience, actually really good experience for the customer to self-cater and yet again reduce load on your valuable human personnel. Right, at this place we were supposed to see some of these points I spoke about. I'm sorry again that we cannot provide them right now for you, but we will be quite happy to share that later on, most likely first thing next week. So, sorry about that again. However, it's not the end of our webinar. Let's take a look of what are the future challenges and tendencies, or more likely, what technical solutions are coming to the market. All these things here are not exactly completely new stuff, but they are not fully integrated into our customer-facing solutions. First of all, I want to return to the point of quality over quantity. As I mentioned, chatbots and intelligent self-catering absolutely must be used to cover for quantity. That is, to cover all the questions which can be answered simply and easily. However, your customer-facing personnel absolutely must be high-quality experts of their question. Only then they can provide really good service to the complex questions and spend more time talking with the customer and actually drilling into their needs. So there we have a huge, coming huge shift in KPI of customer care personnel. We are quite used that the number of phone calls is the KPI of how well and good am I working in customer care center. As I mentioned, it's not going to be anymore. That role is going to be for the robots and automated systems. But for the human personnel, it's absolutely must be shift to the quality over quantity. Next thing is speech analytics. Yet again, here we have artificial intelligence. These tools are already being tested. I haven't seen yet of them being implemented wide scale, but we already have examples of AI engines doing speech recognition, speech pattern recognition, and analytics of the voice. And by this, they can provide really good insights for the specialist talking with the customer. Just by pointing out that customer seems to be really stressed or really relaxed, whether they are angry or not. Most often, at least we think we can hear these things. However, tests show that especially if we spend a lot of time on jumping from call to call, we start to forget and ignore these cues just because of the information overflow. Therefore, speech analytics can and will become a really strong tool to help with your interactions with your customers. The next thing is interactive voice and video response system. This is already being used in certain areas. Specifically, I can name IT services. And I mean IT services helping both private and corporate customers with, for example, stuck computer or some problems going on computer. Nowadays, it's quite reasonable and usual for us to expect that if we call IT staff, whether it's in company IT staff or outside help, they will ask us to authorize once-off connection where they essentially take over control of our computer, or at least start seeing our screen and can help us to sort out the problem we're talking about. So we are actually transferring visual data instead of audio data, and this way we make information flow much quicker and more precise. The same systems are being tested for stuff like, for example, any problems I have at home or with machinery or something like that. By just simply using camera of your mobile phone, you can essentially transfer information as a customer to the customer care specialist. And he can just simply tell you that, please turn the camera a little bit to the left. Here you can see this red knob, please turn it 45 degrees to the left. Or you don't know how much is 45 degrees. No problem there, I'm dropping you a YouTube link where you can see exactly what I mean. There is our video instruction of what you need to do and with what part. So there you go, IVVR, maybe it's not for each branch of the industry, but it definitely is coming and is going to be quite an extra help. And last is remote ID. That is exactly back to the question of 360 view, intelligent routing, and all the other stuff I spoke earlier about. We have remote ID implemented, at least here in Baltic countries, in banking sectors. Through banking sector, most of the government institutions are already using that. But it's done not only because of extra help to the customer, but of legal requirements. However, commercial businesses are seeing quite a good solution of how to ultimately identify customer. At the moment, we do that by mobile phone number, by email, but we actually never know. And especially if you take into consideration, say, for example, Western Europe countries, it's really, really annoying to hear each and every time when you call about your mobile bill or anything, could you please answer these security questions? I really don't want to answer my date of birth or my address or anything. If I can simply and quickly identify myself by mobile phone, for whether I use Smart ID or mobile signature. I just want it to be quick. I want to avoid all these annoying questions. There you go. So remote ID is also the technology which we see a huge rise in even commercial sector in the future. Thank you very much for staying with us today, and hope to see you in our next sessions.